instead of blood. Otherwise, the sensitive nerves would be deafened by the sound of the body's own pulse. Wow, I didn't know that. So God had to have fluid go over there instead of blood, because if it connected with the blood, then the pulse that you feel here would go in your ear and it would deafen you. Imagine that. Now somebody had to get into this to figure this out. I mean, I wasn't born with this kind of stuff. I mean, somebody had to, I don't know, go through people and experiment or whatever they did to come up with this. And every time you would come across something like this and you wrote it in your studies, I mean, you know what the problem is? People that did this, I forgot they were Christians. They believed in God, so they weren't amazed about this. I'm sorry, it's our new generation. They were reading the information that Christians have already produced and trying to claim it as their own, like they made some kind of new invention. Anything that they have, if they're stinking atheists are fools. The fool has said in his heart there is no God, so they're a fool. So those that said that are just building upon something that people that believed in God have already discovered. How'd that happen? Because God is knowledge, God is truth, and God allowed his people to understand truth. And that's where light comes in. And when light comes in, that's where you have civilization. I forgot about that. So let's all go back to the stinking jungle where everybody lives like stinking animals, because that's what happened to our country, because we're going pagan. Because Christians ain't men and Christians ain't women enough to tell somebody. Amen. Nerve impulse. A neuron, nerve cell, transmits information rapidly at up to 525 feet per second between different parts of the body. The neurons, dendrites, if I don't pronounce this right, if you're like going through medical school like Suzanne or somebody else here, I'm sorry. I hope you catch the drift. Amen. I know I should have looked up everything in pronunciation. They told me to do that. I didn't. Okay, the neurons, dendrites receive incoming signals. Its axon transmits signals outward. Each unit of transmitting information is called a nerve impulse. This is a traveling wave of chemical and electrical changes inside the membrane of the nerve cell. The chemical changes partly consist of the passage of sodium and potassium ions moving across the membrane. As the movement continues, sequential changes occur in permeability of the membrane to positive sodium ions and potassium ions. These produce electrical signals called action potentials. I know I'm putting you to sleep right now, but just hang in there. These impulses are passed along as a pulse of electrical charge. When the impulse reaches the next neuron, it is received at the synapse, which is a specialized area closely linked to the next cell. Upon reaching the synapse, the impulse releases a chemical substance called a neurotransmitter. This diffuses across the neighboring cell en route to its final destination, where it stimulates another impulse of the effector cell. By the way, with trillions of possible nerve cell paths, how does the impulse originating in my brain have enough sense to select its way from among many alternative routes to my finger so I can type a single letter of this sentence? That's so deep to me. I can't even see a cell. You can't either. One. More could be added about the wonders of the liver. With over 2,000 chemical production and storage functions, the lungs, which contain 300 million air sacs and if spread out would cover a 730 square foot area. The hormones, nearly a dozen glands producing 19 different hormones and regulating 28 different body functions and dozens of other marvels in the human body. Thank God every day of life for his blessings and never deny his existence. He is the best friend you could ever have. We will, when you think about this, we'll get into one more thing here. And this is something when I think about it. This description by a microbiologist of many years' experience of how a single protein that has been synthesized in the cytoplasm of a tiny cell is sent from one part of the cell to a lysosome in another part. This is a brainless wonder guided by a divine hand. And this is a lot of nomenclature here, medical, but let me read it just for the tape, because they'll probably correct me and get mad that I'm mispronouncing, but at least they'll get the point and they can look it up, amen. There's some people listening to this message right now, maybe a doctor. and say that's right. Wouldn't that be amazing? If God let a doctor, somebody real intelligent, many degrees, and just listen to my message and put little bits and pieces and he was sort of mad at my diction and different pronunciations, my semantics and everything. It was just irritating, but he was listening, and all of a sudden he got to the end and got saved. Wouldn't that be good? And I got a record of that. I could go, ha 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 ha. Oh, it wasn't me, it was God, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, we're back to him, ain't we? Yeah, because he will use anything he can to get somebody saved. God will. Even use you. An RNA copy called messenger RNA, or just sub-mRNA, is made of the DNA gene coding for a protein that works in the cell's garbage disposal, the lysosome. I can't even comprehend this. The cell. I can't even see the little thing. It's got a garbage disposal. In other words, it picks up stuff and it dumps it. I got a hard time seeing a little stinking ant. A cell. How could you study a cell and see all the design in a cell and be an atheist? That's insanity, man. Garbage disposal in a cell. He says we'll call the protein garbages. The RNA is made in the nucleus, then floats over to the nuclear pore. Proteins in the pore recognize a signal on the RNA, so the pore opens, and the RNA floats into the cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm, the cell's master machines, plural, ribosomes, begin making garbage using information in the RNA. The first part of the growing protein chain contains a signal sequence made of amino acids. As soon as the signal sequence forms, a signal recognition particle, SRP, grabs onto the signal and causes the ribosome to pause. The SRP and associated molecules then float over to an SRP receptor in the membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum, ER, and stick there. This simultaneously causes the ribosome to resume synthesis and a protein channel to open in the membrane. As the protein passes through the channel and into the ER, an enzyme clips off the signal sequence. Once in the ER, garbages has a large complex carbohydrate placed on it. Codomer proteins cause a drop of the ER containing some garbages plus proteins to pinch off, cross over to the Golgi apparatus and fuse with it. Some of the proteins are returned to the ER if they contain the proper signal. This happens 2 more times as the protein progresses through the several compartments of the Golgi. Within the Golgi, an enzyme recognizes the signal patch on garbages and places another carbohydrate group on it. A second enzyme trims the freshly attached carbohydrate, leaving behind mannose 6-phosphate, MC or M6P. In the final compartment of the Golgi, clethorin proteins gather in the patch and begin to bud. Within the clethorin visual is a receptor protein that binds to M6P. The M6P receptor grabs onto M6P of garbages and pulls it on board before the visco buds off. On the outside of the visco is a V snare protein that specifically recognizes a T snare on the lysosome. Once docked, NSF and SNAP proteins fuse the visco to the lysosome. Garbages has now arrived at its destination and can begin the job for which it was made. Now I'm reading all that just like you. I don't know. If we were to explain this with a dictionary, we'd be here all day just figuring out what this guy is saying in a sense. But this is all being done, and they call it many machines in one cell. And then I read on the bottom it says this: the entire above process takes place in a split second. In a split second! The various signals and checks by over 25 different structures without brains, count them, occur in order to make sure that only certain substances no longer needed are sent to lysosome. By now you are wondering what a lysosome is. Nothing complicated. Just a tiny package structure inside a cell that, among other things, has enzymes which break down proteins and other biological substances for excretion into the bloodstream. Lysosomes also play a part in digestion and in white blood cells, where they tear captured enemy bacteria to pieces. You did not know that all this was in you, but God did, for he put it there. Out of thousands of different types of substances inside you, if only the seemingly insignificant lysosomes were not included in your body's blueprint,